Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 15th episode of Excerpts from Experts. Now, today, what we are going to do is we are going to have a second step on the national education policy. So far, we have been speaking to various principals, various educators who are associated with Career Beacon, and this series of the decoding the national education policy is actually an attempt by the Career Beacon to ensure that we decode the policy in the simpler terms so that the 66 pager, the national policy which has been there, plus the NRF and NDF which are there, which should not be very complicated, as most of the educators understand it much better. So we have ensured that we bring the best of the educators or best of the people from the fraternity who can discuss one to one on these policy guidelines. Now, today with us, we have an eminent person, and I would like to introduce him only in 5 words. He is a soldier, he is a leader, he is an educationist, he is a mentor, he is a trainer. So, that's the only 5 words introduction that I can give for that person, because we feel that he is much, much, much larger than what are these words that I've 5 words that I've said. Without delaying anyone, and I'll just put a spotlight on Lieutenant A. Colonel Shekhar, who can actually discuss about the thing. So, welcome, Colonel, and I hope we can do a justice during our discussion to discuss about the national education policy. So, all yours, please set the context for today.
Right. Thank you, Sunanda ma'am. Thank you, Career Beacon, for the opportunity. And you have tried to put the term decoding of the policy. My first statement would be there are not too many codes in this policy. It's a policy which is broadly straightforward in the sense that the big picture which emerges out of this policy is quite clear headed, and it is a policy which is for the future of India in the context we are in. That much is fair. Compliments to Dr. Kasturi Rangan and his team for coming up with it. My second important point would be please do not read the policy alone with those 66 pages. Please read it with those 484 pages which have been highlighted in the draft national education policy and also in the context of what India is. My third point would be when we became independent, we were under 40 crores of people, and women's literacy was less than 10%. Today, as we are now more than 138 crores, with something like 321 million Indians in schools and in colleges, which is more than the population of the United States. You are not talking about helicopter vision. You have to talk about a vision. Goddess Saraswati herself will look at it from heaven. It's vast, it is huge. So the question is, how do we get this very well-made policy executed on ground? That would be a significant challenge. Second, we in India are part of a very federal structure. Education is part not only of the central government remit, it's only later that it became a part of the concurrent list. Earlier on, it was only part of the states. So how would the synergy between the state and the central governments come together? Three, 45% of all our students study in the private sector. How would the government, the private sector, and all others, I'm not very fond of the word stakeholders, but I would use it in this context. How would every one of us come together to optimize this policy? India by 2040 reaches its destination as a knowledge power. This would be my initial statement, Madam Sunanda. Now you can ask me your follow-up questions.
Okay, now, so you have set a right, setup that you have given the statistics, you have given that when the policy was made, or the first policy when it was made, what is the kind of population that. Now I would like to know, though we are knowing that there are so many positive aspects of the policy, but still there are certain gray areas which I believe educators like you, people who have you know, who have been a veteran into this field and who have been speaking on many various forum on these things, can actually bring the right kind of gesture. So I would request you to first start with any one of the gray area which people should be very clear. As you have said, it should not be only read along with only the 66 pages should not be read. It should be read with the 484 pages of the draft policy. We agree to it. At the same time, but I'm sure there are certain things which are not highlighted properly or still a gray area. I would request you to highlight those so that we can have a clarity on those. As you have been speaking to many forums and you have been addressing many people, may it be educators, may it be bureaucrats, may it be the civilians, whosoever you are addressing, we would like to know the gray areas on that aspect.
Right. Are you able to hear me loud and clear? Yeah.
Yes, I
Yeah.
am.
Yeah. Firstly, let's look at this policy holistically and see how we go about doing it. Foundational, foundational to primary, upper primary, secondary, senior secondary. So first, we try and make the child school ready, life ready. Gradually, we go in higher classes. From there, the student has to be college ready. From college ready, he has to go into several courses or continue on college to become job ready, and from job ready to livelihood ready and life ready. That's the big picture. Second, India's population, 56% of it is below the age of 26, or you can keep saying whatever, around 60% below the age of 30. 20 years from today, this population will be above the age of 50. Our demographic dividend is going to start waning itself post 2035 and later on. Three, we are getting something like 1 million people coming into a working age population every month. So, in all this context, my first question is, where is the industry academia relationship? Where have we talked about industry and academia? What Mr. Narayana Murthy famously said, our engineers are not employable. What are the skill sets they should have? Second, our IIT, IIM types, the best in the country, almost all of them, 56 to 60% of them quit their first jobs within a year. Three, we have talked about getting 3 core students back. Till now, we have only 26% of our students going into college. Right? You are in Delhi, 50% of all Delhi students reach college. 45% of all Tamil Nadu students reach college. In the rest of India, it is about 26%. We want to make it 30, 40, 50. We have 700 universities. Will you create 1400 universities? Do you have the money for it? Do you have the infrastructure for it? Most importantly, do you have the educators and faculty for it? Final point. Great idea. Where is the money? On an average, it's about the amount of money given has come down as a ratio of the GDP. And on this context, the last point is all our states are in huge debt. Maharashtra, well over 3 lakh crores. Kerala, over 2 lakh crores. अरे भैया पैसा कहां से लाओगे ये सब करने के लिए? So obviously, from beyond the big statements we make, and if you go back to Kothari Commission, Mudaliar Commission, Radhakrishnan Commission, first policy, second policy, third, forwarded, everything. The basic ethos remain. Although certain changes have happened, We wanted initially every student to go to school, every student to have a school, every woman to be educated. We are now coming closer to something like 70 to 80% reaching at least grade 7, 8 post right to education, etc. Now our challenge is to get them job ready, life ready, and also up the academic and educational standards. What is the future? The future is our student should be able to learn Japanese, the life and critical things he should have, go to Japan, adjust with that culture. Why I'm using the term Japan is Japan's population is coming down. So we will be exporting human resource there, and Japan is a very famously country. People don't going there. Japan and those countries like Europe where population is now coming down, they will look for our human resource. So are we getting them ready for it? The answer is the policy is great. ग्राउंड में कैसे इसको इंप्लीमेंट करोगे, उसके लिए पैसा, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर सभी लानी पड़ेगी, for which we will have to go into a very different mode altogether. So these would be my clear, specific questions about the policy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I believe you have actually opened the context. When you told about the employability, that how the employability is getting affected, I being an HR professional, I know when we actually went to the campuses and we tried hiring people, we can see that the skill set was not matching. And the same thing when we go back to the institute and say that see there are no skill sets, we came here to hire at least 8 people and we are not even getting one person. So just because we have come all the way, and when we are recruiting we cannot go back with empty hats. So at times we see the people who are having the caliber onto it. Now the second part, as you have quoted Mr. Narayan Murthy, yes, World Economic Forum has actually taken out the complete synopsis that only 33% of the people are employable. So what about the rest 67%? I am a career mentor, and more often I see parents, they are actually forcing, नहीं नहीं मेरा बच्चा BSc नहीं करना चाहिए, BCA नहीं करना चाहिए, उसको तो BTech कंप्यूटर साइंस में ही कराओ जी. And the guy who is working in a media house, he's saying, if I am getting a BCA and BTech, I would rather hire a BTech for 20,000 rather than taking a BCA. So a person who is having a dual tongue, when he is trying to hire a BTech for 20,000, and he doesn't want his son or his daughter to be a BCA or BSc, they feel that they are not employable. So this is the kind of paradigm shift that we need to actually bring in. Also, at the same time, there was a report that was done by Conferry in 2017-18, I believe, wherein they said India is going to be the talent hub and India will be exporting the talent. So as you have said, we have to make our people job ready so that they are having the skill sets like that. So people, organizations like HCL, they have to come forward, because they have come forward and they are ensuring that they're picking up the 12th class students so that they can be actually ruled out, ensuring that they can provide the services or the education based on their curriculum so that they can prepare their students job ready based on their kind of curriculum. So the kind of university like Shastra or Bits Pilani, they are coming and giving the work integrated thing. So do we have any plans of such thing in the national education policy where the corporate is coming along with the education institute and creating a curriculum which is required for them and that can be done?
Right. Now, I would go very differently from what you have explained. India, just about 10% is in the organized sector. Rest 85 to 90%, we are very much in the non-organized sector. Two,
True.
when we start from schools, colleges, etc., across the board, if you see, now I'm from Kerala, I see how many people go to the Gulf. And now many of them are coming back too because of various reasons. Question one, where are we looking at in terms of improvement? The answer, everywhere. Second, if we have to make our students improve at every level, the policy clearly lays down everything. I have no quarrel with the policy. But as always, the policy becomes a victim to ground realities. We in the army say that all your planning will collapse once the first bullet is fired. Here, where are we going to marry up the requirements of the future along with the ground realities? Firstly, our schools are more regimented than the army. 8 बजे स्कूल खोलना है, 8 बजे ही घंटी बजेगा. We have not changed enough. We still believe in the book, although COVID has been a very positive and very thoughtful disruptor. You don't want to have COVID, but COVID had disrupted the education system. I'm grateful for that. Second, are we willing to retrain our teachers? The amount of money which is required. And let's take the average teacher. She's a mother first, daughter-in-law second, spouse third, and then she becomes a teacher. It's a provocative statement, not many would like it, but that's the ground reality in most of tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 towns. Where do we have the time, space, energy to lift them up? We have to create the space, the time, as well as the resources for it. Now, coming up to all of these, we look at our big universities and corporates. Now, corporates, when they look at, and that's one of the challenges Western countries are beginning to see, corporates look at their bottom line, top line, and they look at shareholders as a major stakeholders. Every quarter, what is our profit? Every year, how much are we improving our shareholders? In that context, the shareholder is only interested in increasing money for his shares. For the nation to have it right, it has to be much more integrated. So in that integrated concept, our corporates have to come forward to create universities which are world class, aligned with the job requirements they think is appropriate, and they have to go beyond their profits. And when they go beyond their profits, they have to think like the Tatas and Birlas pre-independence, where we thought about establishing a few things. Now, despite all the compliances we do and follow-ups we do, my own understanding is that the corporates can invest much more in the education, but it will not give you immediate short-term goals in terms of results. It will take time. And that's one of the significant challenges we'll face. The policy is expected to be implemented over 10 years. By 2040, we'll have a completion every 5 years. The curriculum framework will change. But think about how India, the world will change. Till now, we have had population increasing. Post 2030, our population is going to stop increasing. It's going to become stable. By 2064, the world's population is going to stabilize and then go down after that. In these contexts, how are we going to reshape our education paradigm? And my last point on this would be the teachers. The teachers who are going to come in today are going to be post-Google teachers. Our students are going to come in post-Google. And I always talk about the power of FANG: Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google. Recently, the American Congress had a big session with all these CEOs, and they are extremely worried about the power they have. I add two more points to it. The new age teacher who's coming in has not seen a world other than Google. They wouldn't go into textbooks and notebooks, the books, the way it is behind you on the screen. Google results come in about less than a second. And none of us go beyond the second page of a Google search. We have students. Yeah. I can't hear you, ma'am. I can't hear you.
I said, in fact, I want to add one thing. that people do not go, like, if you have searched anything on the Google, you do not even go beyond the third post. You are talking about the second page, I'm talking about the third post. So that's
Fair.
that.
Fair. I'm only quoting you, ma'am, statistics of Google itself. They say 92% people don't go beyond the second page. And in the midst of all this, you are going into Amazon, you are going into any of these sites. What does Amazon say? If you don't buy this mixie within the next 10 minutes, the father and mother I'm giving you free of cost, you will not get it if you don't buy it within the next 10 minutes. So that challenge Are you able to hear me now? You have muted me. I can't hear you. You have to unmute me. Yeah.
One, no,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
are, you're audible.
Yeah, I'm audible. Great, man. This is one of the perils of modern technology wherein there was a collapse of the system. I apologize. So,
No
what I'm
problem.
saying is, yeah, what I'm saying is, think about the teacher who is walking into the classroom after looking at the first or second page of Google. Second, 90% of all searches is controlled by Google. Third, 62% of all Google chases going to Google itself. This is their own documentation. They make their own money. Plus, you have youngsters, all of us. Amazon mein chale jao, you're buying a mixie. The father and mother you get free of cost. You will not get it if you don't buy it within the next few minutes. So, the challenge which is created is the tech companies want you to be impatient. Good education will make you think, reflect, and also allow you to ask questions, have differences of opinion. Plus, the challenge of disinformation. You see the amount of disinformation coming in. So, the role of a teacher has to move from being a normal guru to a learning curator. He or she has to go into details, get the right context, and then get the student also who is so much more impatient. So, that transformation, madam, is going to be a significant challenge, and that cannot be left to the government alone. We have all got to do it together. So that challenge is where I am looking at it much more closely. Back to you, ma'am, for your next question.
Thank you so much. So, what you are saying is, let me paraphrase. You are saying that we need to ensure that the teacher is getting transformed. The Even the teaching outcomes will be transformed, because it will be no longer only supported by the Google, and the person has to ensure that the curiosity or the learnability can be taken care of. So, can you quote any one example where maybe in at any school, any country where this kind of education is taking place? Or what do you think, as when you said it is not alone the government who has to do that? So what do you think a person who is aspiring to be a teacher, educator, professor, what kind of skills that the person should imbibe from now as a student, so that they can become an effective teacher? As
Okay.
you rightly said, there is a multifold of information, and of course the right word that you said is disinformation. Now, where do you think how the students or the educators at this moment of time can actually work upon that, so that they are not overloaded by the disinformation, they are having a filtered information, because no one is coming up with any manual. And as you rightly said, people actually do not go beyond the page 2. I personally don't go beyond post 4 of the Google.
Right.
So then we need to have some concrete example which can be adhered and implemented by the teacher themselves, so that we can make a better nation.
Difficult question, madam. A long journey ahead. Firstly, please look at the President of the United States, President Donald Trump. The number of conversations he has, the number of sentences, and the way he speaks. On an average, it is believed that he has been untruthful at least 5 times every day over the last 3 years. Now, once we come to that level of disinformation, just type out a lot. Barack Obama is a Muslim. You will still get 20% of Americans believing it. He is a practicing Christian, but it wouldn't register. Similar to, we have a lot more in India. I can give you many examples. The WhatsApp University, the Google University, the Facebook University dominates. So firstly, the teacher has to understand, and this is how I explain this, and this is a very interesting live example which we can take. Say, Sunanda is a teacher in a school in India. She has got a son and a daughter. She has been in school. She goes to school, comes back late in Delhi. Instead of coming at 4 o'clock, she reaches home at 6 o'clock. She's got a husband who's working. She's got a son and a daughter, and her in-laws staying with her. She comes back home. She does all the pending work a difficult principal like me has given. She does all the work, and instead of sleeping at 9:30, she sleeps at 10:30. Next day morning, instead of getting up at 5:30, she's delayed. She gets up at 6:30. It is raining. The milk woman has not come. She tries to push her husband. The husband, as usual, says, "Oh, yes, Sona, I don't want to." She goes in her scooty, gets the milk, gives a cup of tea to the mother-in-law, who says, "Bahu naukari karti hai, chai bhi time pe nahi milti." All hell breaks loose. She comes to the school. She's late by 15 minutes. The principal is standing there. "Sunanda, you are late." Actually, sir, no excuses. She goes into her grade 5 class. She's a maths teacher. There is student Sachin who is there. He is in the midst of a bitter custody battle between her doctor parents, and the child has not done the homework. Will the teacher show empathy? That is my big question. I asked this in many workshops. Teachers honestly say, "Nahi sir, main gussa aayega." If we are able to get that right, if you are able to get this whole ecosystem right, then your teaching learning process, at the end of the day, ma'am, the student, there is a famous quote by Maya Angelou. She says, she talks about how you are made to feel, that is more important. The student teacher connect becomes super important today. The socio emotional cultural learning is front and center. For that, we have to equip our teachers. Our teachers they have been going beyond the call of duty. They have transformed themselves very well despite lack of pay, and everything over the last 6 months. But if we have to achieve what we want to achieve, the teacher has to transform herself at the socio-emotional level, and further, she has to be able to train and work harder at getting her facts right. And thirdly, lastly, if you are going to teach Newton's second law of motion, force is equal to mass into acceleration, don't go theoretical. Get Jasprit Bumrah bowling to Virat Kohli in an IPL match. Use that as an example. The ball hitting the bat. Work it around. Children will catch on to it better. Or any appropriate example. So the teaching learning process has to transform. Teaching learning process has to be socio-emotional. Teaching learning process has to be grounded. This is what I would say. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Colonel. You actually gave a different perspective altogether that what exactly a teacher-learner relation should be. Now, let me put forward the same question. Supposingly, Sunanda, who entered the class, and Sachin has not completed the homework. One is she will get angry. That's the best obvious thing. The other way is she understands. Okay, like I have gone through an a hard day since yesterday until I reached home to the time I went to the bed, woke up, and the milkman has not turned up. Then on top of that, my mother-in-law is chanting. So I have to ensure that the things are getting done. So how do you think the teacher, since teacher is also a human being, and as you rightly said, she is already playing couple of roles at the domestic front, and in the school she is providing obviously for earning the bread, or maybe to have a social status, or to have her ensure that she is not sitting idle and she is using her education. She is managing the dual task, one at the domestic front, one at the professional front. Now what do you think, what should we be doing as a society that the teacher is having emotional skills? Now who is going to bell that cat? Is it government, is it the principal, or is it the education fraternity? Who can help Sunanda to become a better teacher so that she can have social and economical skills, emotional skills balanced?
All
So
of
if
us.
you
All of us. Every one of us. Who is the society? The society is made up of you,
us,
me, and everyone else. And
right,
yesterday, I was in a session with the school and I made this point. Everyone celebrates the soldier, but ask the middle class or the upper middle class person, he would say, मेरा बेटा फौज में तो नहीं जाना चाहिए, only son, I want him to be close by, etc. Same thing, teaching is not our prime profession. It's the second, third, or fourth choice. Now, all put together, firstly, the policy itself talks about restoring the credibility. Those are wise words. But how do you do it on ground? We also want all our doctors to do COVID treatments, but we do not want those doctors to stay in our bungalows or in our apartments. So we have a very nice way of celebrating hypocrisy. So that's going to be a societal transformation. The answer, Sunanda madam, I do not know. What I would recommend is within our spheres, can we do our best to change thinking and attitude? Earlier on, during my initial phase in the early 90s, we had ladies working, teachers. It was a bit of a pocket money. Early 2000s, post 2005, it is the salary of the lady at home which pays the EMI. And so, whenever in schools for a day or so, when salaries are reduced, that teachers would come, sir, please make sure it is deposited before 10th because 10th is our deadline date. So, there is a remarkable change in the way India is thinking. And it's important. India is going through, see, the United States of America, post the Boston Tea Party, it took 250 years to have the first black president in Barack Obama. India has had its first female prime minister post Golda Meir and Sirimao Bandaranaike and Indira Gandhi. We have had first from the so-called lower caste as president prime minister. Dr. Ambedkar himself was somebody who was not the so-called upper caste. So in India, as Ramachandra Guha said, we are going through five revolutions simultaneously, all put together. This took 200 plus years for other countries. And India's population is 138 crores. The United States is closer to 33 crores. And the amount of space they have. So I am optimistic. We have come a long way from 8% female literacy now to the levels we have in many states. Now we are going to go into our next phase wherein all the 300 million who do not have 2 square meals a day are able to get it. So it is through education that the youngsters, we, the older people, I have much more gray hair than you, we have tried to do our best. In some cases, we have succeeded, some we have not. But ultimately, can the youngsters of today, the future citizens of tomorrow, fearlessly ask questions, do not get answers from their elders, create their own answers and destiny to transform India? I'm optimistic despite all the challenges. Yes, there are some strong criticism we can make of the policy in terms of how it will be implemented. There's a lot more to be said, but I celebrate the document at one level, but I worry about its implementation at the ground level. Ultimately, I'm a cautious optimist. Soldiers are always optimistic. We think about the better of the place. So my way of looking at transformation is we have transformed ourselves from a country in 1947, where in the early 60s, later on in 92, we had to do a lot in terms of surviving. Today, we are a much more confident nation. And for once, the Prime Minister has said this policy will be implemented in letter and spirit. That would be my last point. There has to be cross political support. This is not a Congress, BJP, Trinamool, or a left policy. It is an Indian policy. And there is broad agreement. So all states, irrespective of their political affiliations, must implement it in the right way. And there has to be space at all levels. It should not happen that today I have a textbook, tomorrow another government comes, the textbook changes. Those would be some things which we look at post the national curriculum framework. But my answer to your question is, it's a difficult question. We all have to change. We all have to learn to give more credit, respect, and space to the teacher. The majority of them ladies who are juggling more than 7 to 8 jobs. In fact, my closing comment would be, if Goddess Saraswati comes down to Mother Earth and she's told to become the principal or teacher in a school, she'll run away because the responsibilities are so huge. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Colonel. Very well said. I'm sure the teaching faculty who have been viewing us since the beginning of the episode, they would have seen that the complete episode is actually focusing a lot on how we can develop a teacher, and we understand that you are wearing multiple hats, and during this time of COVID where the education has taken a disruption, plus we have ensured that you guys have ensured that you are teaching to the students, and I can see many of the videos on Facebook where the teacher is actually saying that what kind of problems is it coming. She's looking at the screen where 16 to 17 people can be observed at one time. There is a pressure cooker city which is going on. The parent is sitting beside the student, they are prompting them to do. So it is unlike a typical classroom what you have been taught, teaching a lot, and you were using a chalk and talk method where you can pat, you can actually cuddle a student, you can actually have an eye contact wherein the things are there. Whereas in the screen where you are teaching through Zoom or any other platform, you can see hardly 16 to 20 students at one screen. So either you have to shift the screen or you have to shift into the. We understand there is a lots of expectation from the parents as well as the educators, but we empathize at any moment of time. If Career Beacon could be of any help, we would be more than happy to extend that. With this, we sign off today with an educator, a soldier, a leader, mentor, facilitator who has been with us for this episode. Thank you so much, Colonel, for being with us and sharing great views on the National Education Policy. Colonel,
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for having me. God bless you.
thank you so much.